Hi, this is A. Wesley. That ain't even tells it like a TI is. If you like my video, please give a thumbs up and consider subscribe. Topic I'm going to talk to you today about is the Karen Huger video that she did with Andy Cohen for the Real Housewives of Potomac season 10 episode 17, and then I'm also going to talk about the interview that she did with Sherry Shepherd. Now, the one she did with Andy Cohen, it started off with showing flashbacks to how she got arrested, when she got arrested, and that infamous tape saying that she was Thomas Jefferson concubine and stuff like that. And then after that, they showed where Karen went to court, and then they also showed how Karen went to jail, and then they said fast forward 6 months later, and they showed September I think it was September the 9th or 10th, where she had got out, and when she had got out of jail, and they had showed her walking down the steps and getting in the car, and then they showed her in the car, and she was in the car, and she was saying, slow down, hold up. No, raise down the window. She raised down the window, and she waved out she waved her hand. She waved her hand out of the window, and then she came back, and then she rolled it back down and said, "Ooh, I'm a little bit nervous. I'm a little bit nervous." Next thing you know, they were driving up to her house, but before that, they showed a scene of Ray and Raven and Karen's son David and her sister Bridget. They were all at the house waiting for her, and Raven said, "Ooh, this so nice, this so pretty," and stuff like that. And she was saying, "Yeah, Bridget, Dad always does stuff like that. He has like these pretty little signs typed out saying, 'Welcome home.' Got these pretty flowers out for Mom and stuff like that." She said, "Oh yeah, that does look nice. That does look nice. It does look cute." Next thing you know, they show not Sharon. They show Karen showing up, and then she looked like she knocked on the door, opened the door. The door was already open for her, and then Ray greeted her at the door, and she hugged Ray, and she was glad to see Ray. And then Raven walked up behind Ray, and then she hugged Karen, and then David came in and hugged Karen, and then Ray said, "Come on in here, Karen. Come on in the living room and meet your sister Bridget." She said, "Oh, Bridget, you here? You here?" And she said, Bridget, "Well, I'm so glad you're here." And she said to her family, she said, "I'm so glad all y'all are here that surround me and love me and stuff like that." She said, "Bridget, you stuck by me through thick and thin. Mom will be proud of you." And Karen, you know I was gonna do that. We family. And then so and then so Red said, "How you doing, Karen?" She said, I'm doing good." And without y'all support, I wouldn't have been able to handle this. And she said, "Especially you, Raven, especially you. I couldn't have done this without you, Raven." It's kind of funny. She was kind of smiling. And she said, "David, I sure couldn't have done stuff without you." And then and she said, "Ooh, let me go upstairs and let me go upstairs and get this jail off of me. Let me go up here and get this jail off of me." And stuff like that. And so before she did that, she said, "I'm gonna go up and get this stuff." And she said, "Well, Mom, how you got to here?" She said, "Well, the ladies in the jail said, Karen, you can't go out like that." So they took the braids out they had, put it in my hair. So Karen went upstairs. She did that. Next thing you know, they had cameramen while she was going upstairs. They had cameramen inside of the living room or inside of whatever special room they had, and they were setting up their stuff and stuff like that. Next thing you know, they showed the picture of them in the night, and they showed a black limousine car driving up. Next thing you know, Andy walked up the stairs, and while Andy was walking up the stairs, I guess somebody in production told him that Andy was out there. So Ray went in the hallway and then opened up the door and he said, "Oh, Andy, how you doing, Andy?" He said, "Yeah, welcome in, welcome in." He said, "Come on in, Andy." Andy came on in. He said, "Nice to see you." He said, "Nice to see you too." He said, "Come on right up in here, Andy." We right up in here. So they were standing right up in the hall. I guess it was getting ready. And Andy asked Karen, he said, "Karen, how you doing?" Karen said, "I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay." And he said, "David, we never hardly see you on TV. Why you doing?" And he said, "Well, I'm busy with my own business, I'm busy with my own business. And what it is, I had to help my mom with her businesses and stuff. And so I'm real busy. I'm real busy." I say, I said, Andy, why you ask that boy that question? You could tell he didn't really want to be on camera on TV, but he had to do that because they were sitting up there in the room. And then so he said, Ray, how you doing? How you feeling? Ray said, I'm feeling good. I'm feeling fine now. And I'm just glad she's home. I'm just glad she's home. He said, Raven, what about you? She said, well, I'm glad my mom is at home and stuff like that. And this thing, you know, the cameraman told me to come up in the room. And Ray said, he said, well, y'all want to sit down and talk? He said, y'all can sit down. He said, Ray said, y'all, you want some water, coffee, anything, Andy? Andy said, well, I just want some water. So Ray went out of the room, went back in the room, and then Karen went to sit down and started trying to, talk and stuff like that. Like I said, I just gave a little background a few minutes ago, but this is my opinion of what I think. I think that Karen thought because she had a report with Andy that she could get over on Andy with some of those questions. But it's like when Andy. I was so glad Andy got directed right to the point. You know, that's why he did his greens and stuff while they were setting up. So when he got to sit down, he got right to the point. He said, Karen, did you know you had this problem? He said, Karen, what happened and stuff? She said, well, um, he said, did your kids know about that you had this problem? She said, my kids and Ray both told me that something was wrong 20 years ago, 20 years ago. But I didn't think nothing was wrong. I didn't think nothing was wrong. But I guess I was delusional. And this is what I was saying. That's the typical addict. Whether you're a drug addict or alcoholic, when people tell you something wrong, you're not gonna believe them because you so in your addiction that you think everybody is wrong, everybody's wrong, until you get a situation like this, and so he said, well, since you know that 20 years ago, said, yeah, that's why I said I was delusional. I didn't listen, and so he said, do you think that you should listen back then? She said, well, I should have, but I didn't. But now I have to deal with what I'm going through now. What I'm going through now. And he said, yeah, let's go right into it. He said, Karen, you should have known you had a problem. You had 4 DUIs. He said, oh, let's talk about that, Andy. Let's talk about it. I ain't had 4 DUIs. I had 2 DUIs and the other two. And I'm saying, Karen, I don't know. I don't care if the other two was dismissed or whatever you said. It's still on the record that you got 4 DUIs. And I was saying, I kind of understand why some of the fans were upset with Karen because she is like she's in like she's trying to be realistic, but she also is still delusional. And so and so so Andy kind of looked at her sideways and kept asking, "Oh, next question." And then said Karen, he said Karen, what do you think about the fans saying that you should not be the one teaching people about alcohol anonymous and drunk driving and stuff? She said, "Well, I'm the right one to teach it. I'm the right one to teach because I've been through it. But see, I'm doing AD. I'd rather say AD, and I'm looking at Karen. Whether it's drug addiction or alcoholism, both of them are drugs, and you're dealing with both of them. And later on in the program, she gonna say that she gonna say, "Well, I can't do one without the other. I can't say, I'm on a drug addict for prescription guns and drugs, and not deal with alcohol, and I can say I'm alcoholic and not deal with drugs." And I said, "Karen, you so right." And then later on in the thing, Andy was saying, well, uh, uh, well, uh, you know, you had a problem, Karen. How did you handle the problem on the show? And she said, well, what I did, I kind of weighed it out and measured out. I knew just how much drug to take and just how much alcohol to take. And he said, what was the drug? I can't name the drugs. I can't name the drugs. I'm just gonna say this, and it's for depression. I say whatever depression or whatever you had, or whatever you surely know how to manage it. I know how you manage it. When you got ready to drink, you didn't take them pills because you know that was gonna have a real negative effect. So when you realize you want to drink, you want to take them pills, and so and so after that, he got the saying. You know, some people saying that and like she said she was the best one to do it. And he said, well, some people think you don't need to be on this platform because of what you did. She said, well, and the platform really helped me because because I was structured and I was in a place and stuff like that. And he said, well, why come nobody recognized you were drinking? She said, like I said, I was a functioning alcoholic, and what I did, I knew how to measure stuff out and stuff like that. And she was saying that, like I said, the platform really saved me because of the structure and stuff. But he said, but you was drinking. She said, no. I really didn't know I had a problem until I was at Monique's party. I was saying, yeah, cause you tried to put out that Monique was the one that was drunk and drinking and driving, but you was just as drunk, but you was trying to throw the blame on Monique. I remember that. I remember that episode. And anyway, after that, she tried to explain herself. And he said, "Well, some of your cast members were surprised by what happened." And he showed her a video about what Wendy said, and then she talking about Ashley was half right. She did go to that seafood place. Ray used to pick up from that seafood place all the time, but but Wendy don't live in Potomac, and Wendy don't know what's going on. And Wendy lived far away. She called Wendy some kind of no. She said Wendy lived in Timbuktu, and he said, well, why you having that problem with Wendy? She said Wendy know why I have a problem with her. And she said, thank you, Andy, for this interview. And Andy said, yeah, thank you, Karen. I'm glad you did the interview. And he told Karen at the end, you're still delusional. And I was like, I said, ooh, Andy is a shady, slick queen. Cameron thought she was getting all over on Andy, and Andy just let her know, baby, I didn't believe half of what you said. And so, it switched to the next week, and I saw people putting up to, ooh, Karen on Sherry Shepherd, Karen on Sherry Shepherd. And I started an interview with Sherry Shepherd, and she technically said the same thing with Sherry. But what it was, Sherry had let her know that she had been in jail for 8 days. She said she knows she couldn't handle it. She said, well, like she said, people thought she was in one of them fancy jails where she was getting facelifts and stuff like that. She said, nah, she was in a regular prison where she had a room with a bunk bed and it was hard. She had that bed. She had a she had the bathroom right in the cell, and she didn't like that, and that was hard and stuff. And she was saying, yes, technically she likes it. She said the same thing. Now, the only thing that she said different, that she said different from Andy, she did admit that driving drunk was a very serious was very serious, and she said she was just so happy and glad that she didn't hurt nobody, that she didn't kill nobody, because she wouldn't have been able to take it. And then Cheryl Shepard said, that's why the people are so upset with you. The fans just said, did you read the fan mail? They said, oh no, I had a team to do that. And the team told me, because I really didn't want to hear too much of that. But like I say, I'm here to tell my story, tell my truth. And if people don't want, people can accept it or not. It's up to them. But I'm telling you, I say, Karen, you want to come out with this narrative like at first it was Ray's fault. Then you said on Andy, you and what you call was having problems, and that night you just wanted to run away, get away, and stuff like that. And then she didn't address the assault on Sheriff Shepard, but she did it on what you call, and she looking at she only has Karen looking at she only has alcohol problem, drug problem, but you don't have a drug problem. Karen, you have three different problems. One, you have an assault that you never dealt with, because like you said on Andy Cohen, you kind of blocked everything out after 19. You never was healed from your assault. You got to get that problem fixed first. Once you get that assault problem fixed, then you can work on the addiction. But until you get that assault problem fixed, you gonna have this. And Karen think that she could go on that show without all them women drinking, and that's why when Sherry Shepherd kept on pressing her and challenging her, she tried to get defensive. And I see what some people was talking about. She got a little bit more defensive on Sherry. and stuff. And I guess she thought because Sherry, well, you know how some people be saying, skin color and stuff, but like they say, all skin color and kinfolk. And so, so Sherry Shepherd was challenging her left and right all. And it was like when you challenge Karen, she get real scared and defensive. Now I did like both videos and stuff like that, but like I said, I do kind of agree with some of the fans that Karen do need to take this a little bit more seriously than what she is. That's all I have for this video. This is A. Wesley. That ain't even tells it like a TI is. I am out.